All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. So, today we are going to be talking about the corrupted mods and how good they are and where to use them once you get them. Obviously, we just did the video on how anyone can farm the corrupted mods themselves. Even if you're a brand new player, that is who that guide is kind of geared towards. So, whether you're brand new or just somehow don't know about the corrupted mods, you've been playing for a while, we're going to talk about how good they are and kind of what they're for and their different functions in Warframe. Obviously, I have the whole tier list right here. If you just want to take that without the explanations and then go farm and then just see how you do. This is also kind of a price guide because, you know, the more desirable and better mods are, usually they're the more expensive ones. So you can use this as a rough way to tell how good you're doing in terms of those farms. With that, let's start off talking about these. We're going to start from the top. So, you know, the very important ones first, and then it's going to get gradually less explanation needed down here in the bulk section. So, with that, we're starting with Fleeting Expertise. In the farming video, I pointed out that Fleeting Expertise is by far the best corrupted mod in the game, and that is for a multitude of reasons. A ton of Warframes utilize Fleeting Expertise to lower their ability costs and either dump duration, because they don't really need it, or they counteract the duration loss with duration positive mods such as Augur Message and Continuity. That is kind of the norm. Also, primed continuity is plus 55%, which almost fully negates the minus 60% you get from this mod. So Warframes that need a more neutral duration just use these two mods together to essentially just have plus 60% ability efficiency, where both slots are basically functioning as a streamline each. But yeah, this just helps fix the early game energy economy. It's fantastic for Excal and Mag, and still useful for Volt, although Volt, I will say, will need multiple duration mods because, you know, you're using your 2 on Volt and your 3, and he just wants duration for a lot of things you're going to be doing early on in the game. More specifically, his 3 is usually the most useful thing that Volt can do early on, and also later on. But generally speaking, Fleeting Expertise is just amazing. With Excal, let's use your 4 a whole lot more, and the negative ability duration is not that big a deal for his 2. And then for Mag, this allows you to spam your 4, which is not only survivability, but also damage output. The duration does not matter for that ability at all, so you just get to pay 40 instead of 100 and just spam that shit and kill enemies, which is fantastic, especially in combination with Overextended, which is what I would say is the second best overall corrupted mod. Giving plus 90% ability range for minus 60% ability strength is just a good deal. Tons and tons of Warframes need that range, and even if you're a Warframe that needs to build 200% strength, like generally Zaku is built that way, you will still use Overextended if you need that range. Like, that's how good Overextended is, and how also goes to show how few ability range mods there are. It's not like Duration where we have, like, you know, a good number of options for Overextended. There's the 3, and Augur Reach is very low numbers, and Stretch feels like it's a low number a lot of the time too, even though it's half of an Overextended. Generally though, Overextended, Stretch, and Augur Reach are all going to be used together to max out that range. Overextended is a very core part of that. Also, you kind of take that with Warframes that can just dump strength and not really care about it, and you get, you know, really excellent results. You get basically double range for no downside whenever the frame doesn't care about that strength loss. Moving on, we have Narrow-Minded. Now, Narrow-Minded and Transient Fortitude, I'm going to say, are pretty close in terms of their overall usefulness, but I put Narrow-Minded just a little bit higher because some frames just need a lot of duration and they don't care at all about range, and that's what this is about. Obviously, this is a rank 10 mod, so it's harder to invest in than Fleeting and Overextended, which are both rank 5 mods. But that's also an issue with Transient Fortitude that we have. It's an expensive mod, but even at rank 8, you're going to get a huge amount out of this. And if your Warframe dumps range as their dump stat that they don't need, a rank 8 Narrow-Minded plus a maxed out Fleeting Expertise is net positive on ability duration, and you just basically switch what you're dumping instead of duration to range, which is just super, super useful. Tons of Warframes also scale their range based on duration, and for any of them, like Hildren and Nova, this is a no-brainer. You just use Narrow-Minded. Transient Fortitude, this is a high strength mod. You lose very little, honestly, ability duration. You lose slightly more than an Augur mod in terms of the duration in trade for 55% ability strength. This is best used whenever you just need to hit a specific low-ish cap to some abilities that need strength. So, for example, we have Warframes like Nova, who needs, I think it's 45% ability strength, and this mod at rank 8 can provide exactly that amount at a small duration loss in one mod slot. This saves you from having to use Intensify plus Augur Secrets in order to get to your cap of max slow if you're looking to do that on Nova, and because of that, you get to, of course, put more duration and more other stats in there that are going to be more positive than the negative you're getting on Transient Fortitude, or provide, you know, other benefits along the way. Transient Fortitude, just an excellent mod. Lots of strength for, honestly, a pretty low negative. Then, moving out of the mods for Warframes, we have Corrupt Charge. I put Corrupt Charge very high on here. This is plus 30 initial combo and minus 50% combo duration. So, basically, with this mod installed on the vast majority of weapons, you are going to always maintain a 2x combo multiplier. What this is for is all the heavy attack weapons in the game. Literally all of them. You get that multiplier on your heavy attacks, which means you can just spam heavy attacks. This is useful for the Redeemer, the Stropha, all of the glaives in the game, the Fragor Prime, any weapon that you're going to build around heavy attacks, the Reaper Prime, all of the Nikanas. There's a lot that want to build around this, and it's very, very strong. It's also, I would say, second to Fleeting Expertise in terms of importance for brand new players, because this goes on the Zorus, and this is a tremendous damage increase for the Zorus and can carry you very, very far through the game. So yeah, Corrupt Charge, absolutely stellar. Just a cornerstone of melee builds. Like, literally is half of the reason the heavy attack builds even exist besides Sacrificial Steel. Excellent mod, just, you know, useful for literally anyone unless you just hate heavy attacks, and even then you probably should still have it in your arsenal. Moving on, we have the last of the Warframe ability mods, because they're all up here. Not really that surprising. This is Blind Rage, plus 99% ability strength, minus 55% ability efficiency. So this is lots of strength at the cost of efficiency. Now, really late in, whenever your energy economy is fixed, whether that's through Xeneric or Energize or what have you, or if you're a Warframe that can utilize this or must utilize this in order to get the strength that they need for their build, and you just have to take, you know, the huge negative on energy, this is phenomenal. Absolutely stellar mod. However, it is tough to justify putting this all the way to rank 10, which is usually that threshold where it becomes so good. And at stuff like rank 8, you're usually better off not running this because the trade-off's just not worth it quite yet at that point, because unless you're on a Warframe that's going to take up most of their slots with strength mods, like a Rhino buffer build or a Chroma build. Builds like that are going to take strength from wherever they can get it, and even at lower ranks, Blind Rage is going to be incredibly useful. But I think this is probably the worst overall of the power mods. But of course, it's, you know, we're still in S rank here. It's still absolutely excellent. And you're probably going to want even maybe multiple copies of it for certain builds to kind of balance out strength wherever you happen to need it. I know there are some people that, you know, if you need, say, like a 70, 80% strength, you can just use Blind Rage in one of those slots and take a little bit of negative efficiency and not care too much about it. Moving on, we have Critical Deceleration. So this is higher than the other critical chance mods. This is plus 200% critical chance, minus 20% fire rate. Now, the reason the shotgun one is up here is because this one is a tremendous upgrade over Blunderbuss, whereas the other two mods are considerably less of an upgrade. Blunderbuss goes to 90%, which is less than half of this 200% additional critical chance. This is a tremendously powerful mod for shotguns, and you're going to run it on most of the shotguns that we use that are actually shotguns. Stuff like the Phage and those types of weapons that are going to use a ton of status. Actually, the Phage runs this too. Very few weapons that are shotguns don't use this because crits are good. Unless the shotgun doesn't crit, you pretty much run this. So it's just absolutely excellent, and you kind of need it for those crit builds because it is just such a massive upgrade. Now, moving on, we have a Vile Acceleration, which is plus 90% fire rate, double for bows, and minus 15% damage. It's worth noting, and we'll actually talk about the minus 20% here. Minus 20% fire rate is really not a big deal on most shotguns. They're going to be able to just, you know, kind of shrug that off and not care about that very small damage loss as compared to the huge damage increase from the increased critical chance. And there's plenty of ways to get attack speed if you need it. But speaking of attack speed, Vial Acceleration is plus 90%. This is just excellent. On bows, especially, like the Brahma, the Kuva Brahma, just firing tons of these just missile arrows all the time, constantly, at such a small loss. This minus 15% damage, it sounds like a bigger deal than it is. This minus 15% is actually additive with both Serration and the Merciless buff, though. So for a Serration, you're at plus 165% when that mod is maxed. So all you're really doing is going down to plus 150%. And because of the multiplicative nature of adding fire rate to a weapon, unless this is really hampering your ammo economy, you can treat this as another multiplier to your overall damage that you're going to be doing. And it's just worth it. And once you're into the realm of using the like merciless arcanes and just the arcanes from Steel Path in general, the negative from this is just not even, it might as well not even really exist, because the positive is just so impactful. Tons of weapons utilize this, and if you're going to use bows at all, I would highly advise you to use Vial Acceleration on them. Moving on, we have the rifle and pistol crit mods. Now, these are a bit interesting. I rate the pistol one just a little bit lower for reasons we'll get to in a second. But for critical delay, this is plus 200% critical chance instead of the plus 150% of point strike. And I personally think that extra 50% is absolutely worth it. And I will definitely take the minus 20% on pretty much every weapon, including bows. Granted, I'm going to probably pair critical delay with Vial Acceleration on the bow weapons. And overall, I'm going to get, 140% additional fire rate and get that very large crit chance. And I think that that's worth it. You'll counteract it more than completely with Vial Acceleration, so it's not a big deal on bows. And it's just worth it to take that very small loss in fire rate for this very large increase in damage on most weapons that you're going to encounter. Now, for Creeping Bullseye, this is a bit more of a value question, more so than a real difference, because with Prime Point Blank, I believe it's 187% at max. And 187% critical chance is real similar to 200%. It's only a 13% difference. And that's tiny. However, in order to level Creeping Bullseye, it takes less than 100th of the resources. Because for Prime Point Blank, you're looking at, I believe it's a 14 cost mod, or not Prime Point Blank, Prime Point Strike, or primed, whatever, I forget now. I've forgotten what it's called. The primed pistol mod that adds crit chance. I'll put it on screen. There it is. There's the thing. That is a 10 ranked primed mod that costs 40,000 endo and multiple millions of credits in order to level. Comparing the Creeping Bullseye, this is super low end, and also it can just be farmed at will by new players. So I think for most players, the value proposition of Creeping Bullseye is just that you should use this because it costs less mod points as well. And this is just what you should probably be using if you're a new player. If you're already invested in the primed mod for crit chance for pistols, I mean, by all means, still use that if you feel like that's better. And it, in a lot of cases, it is going to be better legitimately, unless you're overfiring on most of your opponents. But yeah, this mod, excellent. It's what I would tell all new players that aren't already invested in that mod to definitely use instead, because there are way bigger fish to fry in terms of your endo usage on all kinds of different mods in Warframe. And moving on to B rank, these are a bit more, we don't see as much use, but they're still very useful. This is Anemic Agility, which is plus 90% fire rate, minus 15% damage for pistols. So generally speaking, this is excellent for Mesa and Titania, who have exalted pistol weapons, especially Mesa. Mesa, you're going to use Anemic Agility pretty much no matter what. This is just a really excellent mod that you're just probably going to run it because, double fire rate and all. So this is just fantastic there for her. But even for Titania, the additional fire rate is much appreciated, especially whenever you're using Pistolier, because that's going to give you unlimited ammo, and then the fire rate is just, it's just gravy at that point. However, because it is more nichely used on just general pistol builds, where this mod can definitely be used on like a Kuva Nucor or like any given number of fantastic weapons in the secondary slot, usually I'm going to say you're probably going to want to use like a primed heat mod, or more elementals, because the secondary builds are quite full with stuff like Lethal Torrent and Barrel Diffusion and so on and so forth. Is this a mod that you can definitely add where your Hornet Strike was if you're upgrading into the Steel Path Arcanes? 100% absolutely yes. And if you're not a status-focused weapon, this is probably what you should add into there, because you're not going to be adding the Condition Overload like mod, because you're not going to have the statuses to back it up. So the fire rate is going to be really helpful for those specific weapons, but I just think it's just slightly less good overall. For Spoiled Strike, it's a bit of a different story, but kind of similar reasoning to Anemic Agility. This mod, as it stands now, is mostly used on weapons that are stat sticks or some heavy attack weapons, because you get that plus 100% damage, minus 20% attack speed, plus 100% damage on any of your exalted weapons, or your semi-exalted weapons, I guess I should say, that are not separately moddable, such as Korra's 1 or Atlas's 1. Those abilities pretty much just take this 100% damage, and it just is that. There's no attack speed effect on those abilities, so there's no real reason not to run Spoiled Strike. And that's especially true for Atlas's ability, because Atlas's 1 has terrible crit stats unless you're using like Arcane Avenger and all this other stuff. So this is much more useful on Atlas than Korra, but Korra will still run this mod a lot of the time. So yeah, that's what's up with these. And then for Niche, we have two mods that I just wanted to mention that I think are generally going to really kind of fall towards the bulk section, but some people do like them, and I wanted to talk about what the people like them for. We have Heavy Caliber, which is plus 165% damage and minus 55% accuracy. And then we have Magnum Force, which is literally the same stats, except it's for a pistol this time. So these are both, well, Heavy Caliber is a Serration, and then Magnum Force is worse than Hornet Strike percentage-wise and also has minus accuracy on it. So these are used for explosive weapons that people want to be less accurate for kind of more AoE. So stuff like the Kuva Ogress, or, you know, like the Ceranos, like all those types of weapons that are like very large AoEs, you can technically get, by getting more, or by getting less, I suppose, accuracy, you can hit larger areas. Now, it's not as concentrated in the amount of damage, but some people really do prefer that, and I just kind of wanted to talk about that just as a general option that you can try if you're going to level, like, you know, Heavy Caliber to rank 8 or whatever, or even just max it out. And just see how you feel about it on those higher end weapons that have the AoE to kill enemies and don't really need all their focused damage in one spot. That is an option. Now, for the bulk, I'm just gonna like briefly go over why these are bad. Generally speaking, these are bad because their main stat just isn't high enough or good enough. So, Vicious Spread is plus 90% damage, plus 60% spread. There's not really a shotgun that wants to have more spread. Like the ones that, you know, I mean, like you could theoretically use this on like the Phage or whatever, but like, you probably really shouldn't. And plus 90% damage isn't as good as it has been in the past, because of course we have the new Arcanes that give us that stat. So 90% is really not very impressive. Magazine capacity is not worth the reload negative. This is just kind of a waste of a slot. Doesn't really increase your damage in any way that would be noticeable at all. Weapon recoil down. There's an Exilus slot for this, and the minus 36% fire rate is hilarious. Tainted Shell, minus 77% spread, minus 55% fire rate. There's also not really any shotgun that really needs to be pinpoint accuracy, because they're all very close range, and you don't want to lose, you know, half of your fire rate in exchange for having a more accurate weapon. You're not trying to turn your shotguns into sniper rifles. It's just not a thing we're trying to do. We have a magazine capacity increase, reload speed, kind of the exact same thing with Burden Magazine. It's just not useful. All slots, this is just not useful. Same thing for Tainted Clip. It's just not good. Hollow Point is plus 60% critical damage, minus 15% damage. This is not enough critical damage in order to be worth it. In order for this mod to be useful, it'd probably have to be somewhere in the range of like 180% critical damage, which is triple what the value is now. So just value-wise, it's just not worth it right now. I will say that out of all these ones on the bottom, this one and Frail Momentum are probably the ones that would be, you know, easiest, where it's just like, hey, this stat is good, the number's just not good enough. So these are two that could eventually be good. So if you get a few extra of them, maybe hold on to them. Maybe D will eventually buff them, like they did recently with Critical Delay, Creeping Bullseye, and Critical Deceleration, which are all very high ranked. Frail Momentum. So this is plus 90% fire rate, minus 15% damage, which, as we talked about with, you know, Anemic Agility and Vile Acceleration, those are normally quite good stats. Plus 90% is quite a bit, especially if you can use it with double on bows. But for Frail Momentum, This is the same exact stat as Shotgun Spaz, which is the uncommon regular fire rate mod. So in order for Frail Momentum to be used, this would actually need to be probably at least 130 or 140%. The stats on it are good. There's just an uncommon mod that gives you all the positives with none of the negatives, and we're unlikely to use multiple fire rate mods on our shotguns because it's very easy to stack too much fire rate. Then we have Depleted Reload, which is minus 60% magazine capacity plus reload speed. So this, once upon a time, was used on the Vectis Prime, and it's pictured in its art even, but that's just not real anymore. It's just not a real build you should do anymore. We've so far beyond moved past that it's just kind of not a thing. But yeah, that's just what's going on the tier list and what you should be looking for and where these things get used. We have, very important Warframe mods and just mods that create builds and such, and just good stuff going on in here. But yeah, if you want to know how to farm the Crypto Vaults, once again, that was a recent video. I'll actually link that down in the description. I'll just put a little pinned post up there if you guys want to go check that video out. For any new players, want to hit that up. And I will see you tomorrow.